In this video, I'm going to briefly explain how you can build a team for the competitive singles format in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. Now, as a baseline for my explanations in this video, I will use this team that I used throughout Regulation H. I did, however, write an article about this team, and you can view that in the description below. Now, in order to build an effective team that can compete at a high level in competitive singles, you first need to understand what the biggest and most common meta threats are. You can view this by looking at the user stats on Pokemon Home or sv.pokedb.tokyo, which is a website that I will link in the description below. And basically what you can see on there is also the usage over time over the season. So basically this allows you to understand how the meta develops over a season, which can help you build a team for if you want to build another team for the last week of the season or anything like that. You can basically use this as a reference, and it's just really helpful. So knowing the top threats can basically help you select the core Pokemon you want to build a team around. And one example that I basically have here is the classic Dragonite plus Glimmora strategy, where Dragonite is essentially a core Pokemon that you can build a team around, and then you can basically start adding Pokemon that can help the core Pokemon fulfill its role. So for example, Glimmora can help Dragonite by supporting it with hazards, poison, and toxic spikes as well, which can basically allow Dragonite to carry out its Dragonite's plus Roost role more effectively and sweep the opponent's team. Now basically, once you have this core and the core support, then you can start adding the complementary Pokemon. Complementary Pokemon are Pokemon that are selected in unique situations where your core sees a problematic matchup. Then comes the trial and error phase, where you basically go out here and go into ranked battles and start understanding how these matchups actually play out, and also improve your gameplay with your current team. And then from there you can basically make a list of problems and then try and come up with solutions to those problems. And since we are playing in Generation 9, you will need to know how common various Terra types are on each Pokemon, which again comes through trial and error. Having backup plans in case your opponent has a problematic Terra type against your core Pokemon is crucial to the consistency of a team in this generation. So for example, Regulation H has 4 big threats that rise above the others in terms of usage. Those 4 Pokemon are Dragonite, Archaludon, Bloodmoon Ursaluna, and Gholdengo. Therefore, I decided to build a team around Baxcalibur, who has ice and ground coverage to threaten these Pokemon super effectively. It can also be used as a sweeper or a cleaner. Now on this Baxcalibur, I decided to use a ground Terra because it gives me offensive benefits in terms of increasing the damage of Earthquake by 1.5 times, as well as giving me defensive benefits such as Thunderwave immunity, and also just removing the original weaknesses Baxcalibur has. Now I also decided to use a Dragon Dance set because after one Dragon Dance it is able to act before Meowscarada, which is commonly known as a speed bar in the current metagame. Now in order to support this Baxcalibur, I decided to add Primarina, which has the typing and characteristics to be able to force Terras on a lot of Pokemon, such as Ursaluna, Bloodmoon, Dragonite, and Volcarona. And basically this makes it so that Baxcalibur does not have to guess that much when using its moves against the opponent. Also, it helped against things that Baxcalibur does not want to deal with, such as physically defensive Dragon Tail Archaludon and physically defensive Skeledirge. The next Pokemon that I decided to use on this team was Scarf Hydreigon, which is the first complementary Pokemon of this team. And this Hydreigon can be used against a variety of teams that include Dragapult, Meowscarada, or Alolan Ninetales, because essentially the core is too slow to act upon these immediately, so I basically use Hydreigon to be able to act on top of them and gain control over the match. And these moves, the moveset allows me to basically threaten them with a 1-hit KO. Also, it did help that Choice Scarf Hydreigon wasn't really cared for in the current metagame. A lot of players were not really ready for Scarf Hydreigon, so I was basically able to have an element of surprise on my team that basically enabled me to gain more control over the match. Then I decided to use Palma, which was able to provide support when necessary. I also used it because I was able to discover its compatibility when Primarina when dealing with the opponent's Archaludon. So for example, the Power Herb Archaludon, as I explained in my meta-analysis video, was becoming increasingly common as the regulation progressed, and basically Palma is able to, if you have Primarina against the opponent's Archaludon, and the opponent's Archaludon just immediately comes out against Primarina, then you can basically kind of think that it has Electro Shot with Power Herb, so you can basically bring in Palma, absorb it with the Volt Absorb, and essentially get an Encore if they decide to think they can just Terra for free and use another attack. So that's where the compatibility comes into play. Also, the electrical attacks are just really good to have against like opposing flying Terras and water Pokemon such as Zondozo, obviously, which is very common in the meta right now, and same with Primarina. Now, considering Terra compatibility, I decided to use Air Balloon Gholdengo, which also helps break down defensive teams involving Blissey or Clodsire, and also is able to break down common cores such as Attacker Dragonites plus support Archaludon. This Goldango was really helpful because it was able to destroy the Fairy Terrors that other members on the team have forced on the opponent. Lastly, I decided to use Cerulege, who helped the team deal with problematic lead matchups such as Annihilate, Espathra, and Sneasler. It could also potentially sweep a team once his weakness policy was activated by these Pokemon, because essentially these Pokemon would have the moves that weren't strong enough to win at KO Cerulege, and also from when I'm facing a team that has Pokemon like Dragapult plus Alomomola, that core, I'm basically able to activate the weakness policy and get a weak armor boost from Alomomola's flip turn and essentially go on to sweep the opponent's team. This happened many times throughout the seasons of Regulation H. So that's essentially how I build all my teams for the competitive singles format at Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. I start out with my core, I support the core, and then I add my complementary Pokemon. I hope this helps any of you who are looking to build a team to compete at a high level in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet single battles. That's all I have to say for this video. I'll see you in the next one.